There are 8 powerful psychological patterns that can make a man unforgettable. Not because he was kind or steady, but because his actions latch onto deep natural needs and turn them into dependency. I'm telling you this from inside knowledge. I've seen each of these dynamics play out in my life and in the lives of many women I know. These behaviors don't look like textbook abuse at first. They often masquerade as care, challenge, or charisma. But under the surface, they're wiring the brain to crave something that is not love. It's a psychological hook. Before we get into the 8 behaviors, let me be blunt. These are not theories or internet hype. They're patterns grounded in what psychologists and neuroscientists call imprinting and intermittent reinforcement. They map perfectly onto human reward systems. When a man understands how to trigger these systems, even unconsciously, he can shape how a woman remembers him, how she measures future relationships, and how long she remains attached even after he's gone. That's why this matters. Recognizing the pattern can save you months, years, or even decades of confusion. This guide will rephrase and unpack those 8 patterns in clear, practical language so you can hear the warning signs. I'll describe the mechanism behind each behavior, the emotional effect it produces, and the subtle ways it can be weaponized. I'll also show you the difference between genuine connection and carefully produced dependency. Pay special attention to the 6th behavior. It's the one that creates trauma bonds and explains why smart, capable women sometimes stay with men who harm them. Read each section slowly. These are the psychological levers that convert attention into addiction. Behavior number 1. He meets your deepest need to be seen and turns it into dependence. At first glance, this looks like attentiveness. The man notices things others miss. The strain behind your smile, the mental load you carry, the little tasks you quietly manage for everyone else. But the key difference is not merely noticing, it's how he turns that noticing into a reason for you to keep seeking him out. Most people assume women crave surface-level praise. You look great. But what triggers long-term attachment is authentic recognition. Someone seeing the work behind the effort, the invisible labor no one praises. When a man says, "I see how hard that is for you," it does something deep. It validates a hidden truth we often hide to appear strong. That validation is rare, and rare things become precious. Our brains mark the experiencer, the man who recognized us, as essential. This pattern produces what I'll call recognition dependency. The behavior that hooks is subtle. He notices tension before you say anything. He references something you mentioned in passing weeks earlier. He names the emotional weight you're carrying without turning it into a problem he needs to fix. That kind of presence feels like being known, and being known is addictive. Here's the danger. If he uses that awareness selectively, giving you glimpses of rare understanding and withholding it at other times, he creates leverage. You begin to prefer being seen by him more than being treated well by others. You'll rationalize his faults because he's the one who gets you. That trade, being truly seen in exchange for tolerating poor behavior, is at the heart of an enormous psychological trap. Real support doesn't require you to be indebted to someone's presence. It's healthy to be seen. It's not healthy to need someone's recognition to feel worthy. Behavior number 2. He provokes your mind to create intellectual dependence. There's a seductive kind of man who knows how to engage a woman's intellect in a way that feels respectful, but also teasing. He doesn't simply agree or bulldoze. He disagrees with finesse. He offers counterpoints without condescension. That dynamic creates what I'll call intellectual addiction. Why does this work? Because humans seek resolution. When we encounter cognitive dissonance, a nicely delivered disagreement from someone we respect, our minds focus on resolving it. The effect is sustained mental engagement. Instead of settling for easy approval, our brain wants the exchange to continue. It anticipates the next idea, the next comeback, the next shared challenge. The dangerous variation of this behavior is calculated challenge. The man will push just far enough to stimulate curiosity and to make you feel your ideas matter, but not so far that he actually respects you as an equal. He converts intellectual engagement into a feedback loop where your sense of being a thinker is validated only in his presence. You start craving his mental approval the way you crave any other reward. There is a razor-thin line between healthy intellectual sparring and manipulative provocation. The former strengthens both people. The latter leaves one person feeling sharp and alive around the other, and hollow when the sparring ends. If your best thinking becomes tied to getting a particular person's stamp of approval, that's a dependency, not a partnership. This isn't about cold detachment, it's about stable presence. He listens without being swept away. He doesn't collapse when you cry or escalate when you're furious. That capacity is biologically reassuring. Our nervous system's calm in response to another person's regulation. Over time, the calm becomes associated with his presence. You begin to trust that only he can steady you, because he has proven he won't be destabilized by your mess. Again, this can be genuine strength. Someone who helps you learn to ride your own waves rather than absorb them. But it becomes dangerous when the man's calm is wielded to control. He might intentionally remain unflappable to signal that your emotions are a problem only he can manage, or he may withhold warmth until you conform to behaviors he prefers, then reward you with his unflappable presence when you comply. The result? An emotional safety addiction, where your ability to regulate your own feelings atrophies and you become dependent on his steadiness to feel okay. It's essential to distinguish real empathy, which seeks to help you develop internal regulation, from manufactured stability, which makes you dependent on someone else's equilibrium for your own. The former empowers, the latter traps. Behavior number 4. He sets high aspirational standards that pull you into seeking his approval. Standards can be attractive. When someone expects better of themselves and the people around them, it can inspire growth. The toxic twist comes when standards are used as currency, a way to make you constantly strive to earn approval rather than simply be valued. A man who masterfully deploys aspirational standards frames them as "you can be your best," rather than "you are not enough now." The psychological effect is motivating and intoxicating. You begin to see a better version of yourself reflected in his expectations. That reflection becomes a measurement stick you chase. Approval turns into a reward you work to receive. Manipulative men walk a fine line. They offer standards that feel noble and motivating, but they make acceptance contingent. The standard is never fully attainable. There's always another way to improve, another subtle critique, another almost there comment. That keeps you in a perpetual state of striving, and the striving becomes the relationship's engine. This produces approval addiction. Your self-worth becomes tethered to meeting a moving target defined by someone else. Growth loses its joy and becomes labor to win favor. The man who orchestrates this knows that as long as you are chasing, you will invest energy, attention, and personal change into staying close to him. That's an efficient way to exert long-term influence without visible coercion. Behavior number 5. He remembers the things that matter and makes you feel uniquely significant. Anyone can recall a birthday. Few can store the idiosyncratic interior life of someone else and use it to make them feel cherished. When a man remembers the particularities of your inner world, the small dreams you mentioned once, the fears you let slip in a late-night conversation, it creates a sense of deep significance. This is not casual flattery, it's the psychological equivalent of being given a treasure map back to yourself. When someone mirrors your internal landscape, your brain tags that person as someone who understands you beyond surface-level exchange. That being known feeling can be intoxicating. Danger arises when remembering becomes a tactic. If his careful recollection is selective and used to entrench emotional ties, it creates dependence. You start to equate your importance with the person who catalogs your inner life. You crave that attentive recall because it proves you matter to someone else. Even if he later uses that knowledge to manipulate or undermine you, the memory of being treasured binds you. This is significance addiction. The remedy is the realization that being significant does not require being owned by someone else. You can be important to many people and, crucially, to yourself. When only one person's remembrance defines your value, you're at risk of losing autonomy over your own sense of worth. Behavior number 6, he engineers intense sporadic presence that forms trauma bonds. This is the most dangerous, and it's the one that explains many painful, confusing attachments. The tactic is simple in design and devastating in effect. Create rare moments of intense presence, moments that feel transformative, spontaneous, and perfectly attuned, and then vanish. Our brains learn best from variability. Rewards given unpredictably are the hardest to quit. The man who alternates between perfect presence and strategic withdrawal hijacks this learning system. He gives you intense emotional highs, a night where everything is right, an afternoon where you feel seen like never before, then removes that connection without explanation. Your nervous system keeps chasing the memory, the taste of that rare closeness. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, and it's a foundational principle behind addiction. In relationships, it produces trauma bonding, a tie forged in repeated cycles of hope and disappointment, refuge and abandonment. The highs are remembered with emotional clarity. The lows become tolerable because they promise an unpredictable return to the high. The danger is that those enchanted moments are often deliberately manufactured when you're vulnerable. The man times his perfect attentiveness to moments when you craved comfort, then withdraws to leave you craving more. You end up enduring harmful treatment in exchange for the hope of re-experiencing those peaks. That's not love, that's conditioning. Behavior number 7. He makes you feel chosen in a way that becomes addictive. Being selected, truly chosen, matters more than generalized affection. When a man makes you feel like you are the specific person he wants among others, it satisfies a primal need. The manipulative version of this uses selective attention to create choice addiction. The behavior looks like deliberate, prioritized presence. He signals that others exist, but that he intentionally chooses you. He doesn't merely stay, he shows he could leave. That contrast makes the moments when he chooses you feel rare and valuable. You start to equate his choice with your value. The manipulative trick is to make that selection conditional. You can keep his attention only by conforming, adapting, or performing. He may let you in enough to confirm your importance, then withdraw to test if you'll do what it takes to regain favor. The anxiety of potentially losing his selection fuels behaviors that keep you under his influence. When your identity and sense of worth become tied to being chosen by a particular person, you'll tolerate more than you should to remain selected. You will compete with imagined rivals, edit parts of yourself, and create an inner narrative that your value depends on maintaining his interest. That's a cunning psychological trap. Behavior number 8. He leverages absence to create craving and obsession. Finally, there's the art of absence. People often mistake constant availability for commitment. The more sophisticated and potentially manipulative move is to remain present in meaningful ways, but not always. By balancing engagement and distance, a man can make his presence feel precious. When someone has a life outside of you, real passions, obligations, and boundaries, their time together becomes meaningful. But when absence is engineered to create longing rather than healthy space, it becomes a tool. Periodic distance creates mental space in which you replay interactions, imagine conversations, and elevate his importance in your mind. Absence fuels desire, presence confirms it. Intermittent reinforcement again applies. This pattern produces anticipation addiction. You begin to live for the next time he shows up fully. Your thoughts become occupied by him during gaps. That mental preoccupation replaces other sources of meaning. When his attention is scarce, it feels like a prize, and you'll go to lengths to be included. That scarcity-driven attachment is powerful, and it's a common tactic used to anchor someone emotionally without offering consistent care. Conclusion: how these behaviors pair to form a trap and how to resist them. Taken together, these 8 behaviors form an architecture of psychological dependency: recognition, intellectual engagement, steady regulation, aspirational push, remembered significance, intermittent presence, selective choice, and strategic absence. Each on its own can be part of a healthy relationship. Combined and used deliberately or unconsciously by a manipulative person, they create a system that looks and feels like love, but is actually a carefully manufactured loop of reward and withdrawal. Important distinctions: love nourishes autonomy and growth. Manipulation stunts autonomy by painting dependency as intimacy. Healthy partners help you become more of yourself without insisting you earn their care. Toxic partners teach you to trade your inner freedom for the mirage of being uniquely seen, chosen, or inspired. If you notice these patterns in your relationships, be compassionate with yourself. These tactics work because they exploit normal human needs. Recognizing them is the first step toward reclaiming your emotional independence. Real love does not require you to compete for attention, to chase unpredictable highs, or to trade your self-worth for someone else's validation. Real partnership feels sustaining even when the reward is ordinary, not engineered. If this resonates, pause and inventory your relationships. Notice where your sense of value depends on someone else's selective attention, and ask whether you feel stronger or smaller in their presence. Seek connections that consistently build your ability to stand on your own, not ones that create exquisite permission to feel alive only when they allow it. You deserve relationships that restore rather than demand, that reward growth without making you a prisoner to approval. At the end of the day, true masculinity isn't about looks or money. It's about your mindset, your habits, and the way you carry yourself. Those are the things that make women not just attracted, but deeply impressed. If you enjoyed this video and want to discover more powerful habits that transform your life, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. There's plenty more valuable and eye-opening content coming your way.